The stars burned cold in the darkness of space as Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Meridian. He watched through the massive viewing window as two alien fleets moved toward each other like dancers in a deadly ballet. The ships were beautiful in their own way. The Zephyrian vessels looked like giant crystals floating through space, their surfaces glowing with soft blue light. The Vorthak ships were darker, shaped like insects with long metal wings that caught the starlight. Jake had been exploring the outer edges of human space for 3 years now. He had seen many strange things, but nothing quite like this. The two alien fleets were about to fight, but they moved so slowly and carefully that it almost looked like a ceremony instead of a battle. "Captain, we're receiving multiple transmissions from both fleets," said Lieutenant Amy Foster from her station. She was young, barely 25, but she had the best ears for alien languages in the entire human fleet. "They're broadcasting their intentions to each other," Jake frowned. "Broadcasting their intentions? You mean they're telling each other what they plan to do?" "Yes, sir. The Zephyrians are announcing their battle formation and stating their reasons for fighting. The Vorthak are responding with their own tactical positions and objectives. It's like they're having a conversation before the battle." Jake shook his head. In all his years of military service, he had never seen anything like this. When humans fought, they tried to surprise their enemies, to hit them when they weren't expecting it. These aliens were doing the exact opposite. The battle began with a formal signal from both sides. The ships moved into perfect formations, like pieces on a chessboard. They fired their weapons in turns, each side taking careful aim and waiting for the other to respond. It was the most polite war Jake had ever seen. "Sir," called out Ensign Don Cooper from the sensor station, "I'm reading massive casualties on both sides, but neither fleet is trying to break formation or retreat. They're just standing there and shooting at each other." Jake watched as beautiful alien ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Thousands of beings were dying, but their fleets continued to follow what looked like an ancient dance. Number 1 tried to flank the enemy or use dirty tricks. No one ran away when things got bad. They just stood there and died with dignity. "How long has this war been going on?" Jake asked. Lieutenant Foster checked her computer. "According to our records, the Zephyrian Empire and the Vorthak Collective have been fighting for over 300 years, sir. 300 years of this?" Jake stared at the slow, methodical destruction happening before his eyes. "How is that even possible?" "It appears both sides have very strict rules about how warfare should be conducted," Foster explained. "They have codes of honor that prevent them from using certain tactics. They won't attack civilians, they won't destroy supply lines, and they always give their enemies fair warning before an attack." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. These aliens had been killing each other for 3 centuries, but they were doing it politely. They were dying by the millions, but they were following rules that made it impossible for either side to actually win. Back on Earth, Admiral Lisa Carter sat in her office reading the latest intelligence reports. The war between the aliens was getting bigger, and human colonies were starting to get caught in the middle. She had been expecting this day for months. Her assistant, Commander Steve Garcia, knocked on her door. "Admiral, we've received a formal message from the Galactic Council." Lisa looked up from her papers. The Galactic Council was made up of dozens of alien species who tried to stay neutral in the big war. They usually ignored humans, treating them like children who had just learned to walk among the stars. "What do they want?" she asked. Steve handed her a datapad. "They're asking humanity to choose a side in the war. They say we can't stay neutral anymore because our space is becoming part of the battlefield." Lisa read the message carefully. The aliens were polite, as always, but the meaning was clear. Join the war or be destroyed as a threat to galactic order. She had seen this coming for a long time. "Get me Dr. Alex Rodriguez," she said. "I want to hear what he's learned about these aliens." Dr. Rodriguez arrived within the hour. He was a small man with thick glasses who spent his days studying how alien minds worked. He had been watching the war for years, trying to understand why two advanced civilizations would fight so stupidly. "Admiral," he said, settling into a chair across from her desk, "I've been analyzing their military tactics, and I think I understand why this war has gone on so long. Tell me." Both sides see warfare as an art form. For the Zephyrians, battle is about proving their honor and showing their bravery. For the Vorthek, it's about demonstrating the perfection of their collective mind. Neither side actually fights to win. Lisa stared at him. They don't fight to win? Then why do they fight? To prove they're better than their enemies. It's like a game to them, but a game where millions die. They have rules that prevent them from using the tactics that would actually end the war. What kind of rules? Dr. Rodriguez pulled out his notes. They won't attack during certain religious periods. They won't target civilian populations. They won't use biological or chemical weapons. They won't attack supply lines or industrial centers. They won't use surprise attacks or deception. They basically won't do anything that would be considered dishonorable. Lisa felt her blood run cold. So they're killing each other with their hands tied behind their backs. Exactly. And now they want us to join in their polite war. They expect U.S. to choose a side and follow their rules. Lisa walked to her window and looked out at the lights of Earth's capital city. Millions of humans lived their lives down there, unaware that their entire species was about to be forced into a war that had no end. What do you think would happen if we refused to follow their rules? She asked. Dr. Rodriguez was quiet for a long moment. I think they would be horrified. These aliens have been fighting the same way for thousands of years. They can't imagine warfare without honor codes and formal protocols. If someone fought differently, fought to actually win instead of just proving superiority, it would be like watching their entire worldview collapse. And if we joined the war? If we followed their rules, we'd just become part of the endless stalemate. If we didn't follow their rules, ... double quotes. He paused. I think we'd terrify them more than they've ever been terrified in their lives. Lisa nodded slowly. She had been a soldier for 30 years, and she understood something that these aliens apparently didn't. War wasn't a game. It wasn't about honor or art or proving who was better. War was about making your enemy stop fighting by any means necessary. Dr. Rodriguez, she said, I want you to prepare a full report on alien military psychology. I have a feeling that humanity is about to teach the galaxy a lesson about what war really means. As Dr. Rodriguez left her office, Lisa looked back out at the city lights. Soon she would have to make a choice that would change everything. The aliens expected humans to pick a side and play by their rules. But Lisa was beginning to think that humanity might have a third option. She picked up her phone and called, President Maria Lopez, Madam President, we need to talk. The aliens want us to join their war, but I think we should consider starting our own. The war that had lasted 300 years was about to meet the species that would change everything about how wars were fought. The aliens just didn't know it yet. President Maria Lopez sat at the head of the massive conference table in the United Earth Government building. Around her sat the most powerful people in human space. The room was tense, filled with the weight of a decision that would change humanity's future forever. Ladies and gentlemen, Maria began, her voice steady despite the gravity of the moment, we have 48 hours to give the Galactic Council our answer. We can join the Zephyrian Empire, join the Vorthek Collective, or face the consequences of staying neutral. Senator Paul Davis, a tall man with gray hair, leaned forward. Madam President, I believe neutrality is still our best option. This war has been going on for 3 centuries. It could go on for 3 more. Why should we waste human lives on an alien conflict? General Ryan Brooks, the head of Earth's military forces, shook his head. Senator, with respect, neutrality isn't an option anymore. Our colonies are already being attacked. We've lost 3 outposts in the last month. The war is coming to us whether we want it or not. Admiral Lisa Carter placed a datapad on the table. The general is right. Our intelligence shows that both alien factions are expanding their battle zones. Human space is right in the middle of their expansion paths. We're going to be a battlefield whether we choose sides or not. Maria looked around the table. Dr. Rodriguez, what's your assessment of our chances if we do join one of the factions? Dr. Alex Rodriguez adjusted his glasses nervously. Madam President, if we follow their rules of warfare, we become just another minor player in an endless conflict. The Zephyrians have been fighting for honor, and the Vorthak have been fighting for perfection. Neither side fights to actually end the war, but what if we don't follow their rules? Asked General Brooks. The room fell silent. Dr. Rodriguez looked uncomfortable. General, I don't think you understand how deeply these rules are built into their cultures. Breaking them would be like humans deciding to stop breathing. It's unthinkable to them. Maria stood up and walked to the large window that showed Earth's blue sky. What if we made it thinkable? Senator Davis frowned. What do you mean? What if we didn't join either side? What if we declared war on both of them? The room erupted in shocked voices. Senator Davis stood up quickly. That's insane. We're talking about two galactic empires with millions of ships and trillions of soldiers. Humanity has barely 1,000 warships. General Brooks was quiet for a moment, then slowly smiled. It's crazy enough that it might work. Explain, Maria said. Think about it, Brooks continued. They've been fighting each other for 300 years using the same tactics, the same rules, the same honor codes. They know exactly what to expect from each other. But they have no idea what to expect from us. Admiral Carter nodded slowly. We could use tactics they've never seen before. Surprise attacks, psychological warfare, targeting their infrastructure instead of just their military. But the cost, Senator Davis protested. We'd be fighting a war on two fronts against enemies that outnumber us thousands to one. Dr. Rodriguez spoke up quietly. Actually, that might be our advantage. They're used to fighting one enemy at a time, using predictable tactics. If we force them to fight us while they're still fighting each other, and if we use methods they can't predict or counter, we might be able to do something they've never experienced. What's that? Maria asked. We might be able to actually win. The debate continued for hours. Some argued for joining the Zephyrians, others for the Vorthak. A few still pushed for neutrality. But as the discussion went on, more and more people began to see the logic in Maria's radical proposal. Colonel Ben Martinez, the head of human military intelligence, had been quiet throughout the meeting. Finally, he spoke. Madam President, I've been studying both alien militaries for years. I think we can do this, but only if we're willing to fight a type of war they've never seen before. What do you mean? I mean we throw out every rule they consider sacred. We attack without warning. We target their civilians and infrastructure. We use biological and chemical weapons. We lie, cheat, and do whatever it takes to win. Senator Davis looked horrified. Colonel, you're talking about becoming monsters. No, Martinez replied calmly. I'm talking about becoming soldiers. There's a difference between fighting for honor and fighting for survival. Maria looked around the table one more time. Going to put this to a vote? But first, I want everyone to understand what we're really deciding. If we choose this path, we're not just declaring war on two alien empires. We're declaring that humanity will fight differently than anyone else in the galaxy has ever fought. The vote was closer than expected, but the decision was clear. By a margin of 7-5, the United Earth government chose to declare war on both the Zephyrian Empire and the Vorthak Collective simultaneously. 2 days later, the message was broadcast across the galaxy on every communication frequency known to science. The transmission was simple and direct, delivered by Maria herself. To the Zephyrian Empire and the Vorthak Collective, this is President Maria Lopez of the United Earth Government. You have brought your war to our space and threatened our people. You have demanded that we choose sides in a conflict that has already lasted too long. We have made our choice. We choose neither of you. Instead, we declare war on both of your civilizations. End your war and leave our space or face the consequences? The message was broadcast for 24 hours straight, reaching every corner of both alien empires on the Zephyrian homeworld War Master Kethvareth stood before his council of generals. He was a tall, crystalline being whose body glowed with inner light when he was angry. Right now, he was glowing very brightly. "These humans," he said, his voice like breaking glass, "they dare to challenge the honor of the Zephyrian Empire? They are insects who have barely learned to travel between stars." General Vexthara, his second-in-command, looked at the tactical displays. "War Master, our intelligence suggests the humans have only 1,000 ships. We could crush them in a single engagement." "No," Kethvareth said firmly. "They have issued a formal challenge. Honor demands we respond properly. We will give them time to prepare, as is traditional. We will announce our battle plans and allow them to respond. We will show these young upstarts how civilized beings conduct warfare." Meanwhile, in the vast collective consciousness of the Vorthak, the Prime Node processed the human message with computational precision. The Vorthak were a hive mind, millions of individual beings connected in perfect unity. They had never encountered a species that declared war on two enemies simultaneously. The collective mind calculated probabilities and strategic outcomes. The humans were numerically insignificant. Their technology was primitive compared to Vorthak science. Their military was tiny compared to the collective's vast fleets, yet something about the human message disturbed the collective. There was something in the tone, something that didn't match the careful, formal declarations of war they were used to receiving from the Zephyrians. The Vorthak decided to wait and observe. They would see how these humans fought before committing resources to destroy them. Back on Earth, Admiral Carter stood in the command center of the human fleet. Around her, officers prepared for a war unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Captain Emma Stone, one of their best reconnaissance officers, approached her station. "Admiral, we've finished our scouting missions. Both alien fleets are moving toward our space, but they're moving slowly and broadcasting their intentions." "What do you mean?" "They're telling us exactly when and where they plan to attack. The Zephyrians have sent us a formal battle invitation, and the Vorthak have transmitted their tactical analysis of our defenses." Carter almost laughed. After 3 centuries of fighting each other, the aliens still didn't understand that the point of war was to win, not to be polite. "Emma," she said, "I want you to prepare our response, but don't send it to them directly. I want you to send it to every news network, every communications hub, and every diplomatic channel in the galaxy." "What should the message say?" Carter smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant smile. "Tell them that humanity accepts their challenge. Tell them that we'll show them what war really looks like. And tell them that when we're done, they'll understand why. The galaxy should fear the day humans learn to fight." As the message was prepared for transmission, Carter looked out at the stars. Soon, 2 alien civilizations would learn that humans didn't fight for honor or perfection. They fought to make their enemies stop fighting forever. The galaxy was about to discover what 300 years of polite warfare had taught humanity to avoid. They were about to learn that some species fight to win, no matter what it takes. Captain Julie Walsh floated in the darkness of space, her stealth suit making her almost invisible against the black void. Around her, 20 other human commandos drifted silently toward the massive Zephyrian honor fleet. The crystalline ships glowed softly in the distance, their crews preparing for what they believed would be a proper battle. Julie checked her watch. According to Zephyrian tradition, the enemy fleet would spend the next 4 hours in meditation before battle. They would sit quietly, thinking about honor and glory, preparing their minds for combat. It was the perfect time to strike. "All teams report in," she whispered into her communicator. "Team 2 ready," came the voice of Lieutenant Rick Adams. "We're in position near their command ship." "Team 3 ready," reported Sergeant Kate Brown. "Their shields are down, just like intelligence said they would be." Julie almost couldn't believe it. The Zephyrians had lowered their defensive shields as part of their pre-battle ritual. They believed that hiding behind defenses before a fight was dishonorable. They wanted to face their enemies with nothing but their weapons and their courage. "Remember," Julie said to her team, "we hit them all at once. No warnings, no announcements. We destroy every ship we can before they know what's happening. The plan was simple and brutal. While the Zephyrians meditated, human commandos would plant explosive charges on their ships. The entire fleet would be destroyed before they could raise their shields or fight back. Julie's team reached the flagship first. The ship was beautiful, carved from what looked like blue crystal and decorated with symbols that told the story of Zephyrian military honor. Julie almost felt bad about what she was about to do. She attached the charges to the ship's hull, right next to the engines. The explosives were small but powerful, designed to cause maximum damage to the ship's vital systems. Around the fleet, other human teams were doing the same thing. All teams' charges are set, Julie reported. 30 seconds to detonation. She pushed away from the ship and activated her suit's thrusters, moving as fast as she could away from the fleet. Behind her, the Zephyrians continued their meditation, completely unaware of what was about to happen. The explosions lit up space like a new sun. One by one, the proud Zephyrian ships broke apart, their crystal hulls shattering into millions of pieces. The fleet that had been preparing for honorable combat was destroyed in seconds, without firing a single shot on the Zephyrian homeworld. War Master Kethvareth watched the destruction of his honor fleet with growing horror. The tactical display showed ship after ship disappearing from the screens, their life signals going dark one by one. What happened? He demanded. Where was the battle? Where was the formal challenge? General Vextara stared at the screens in disbelief. War Master, it appears the humans attacked during the meditation period. They destroyed our ships while the crews were preparing for battle. That's impossible, Kethvareth said, his crystalline body flickering with confused light. No civilized species would attack during meditation. It's the most sacred part of military tradition. Sir, called out a young communications officer, we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. Put it through. The image of Captain Jake Morrison appeared on the screen. He was standing on the bridge of his ship, looking calm and professional. War Master Kethvareth, this is Captain Morrison of the human fleet. I'm calling to inform you that we have destroyed your honor fleet. No prisoners were taken. No quarter was given. This is what war looks like when you fight to win. Kethvareth's body flared with angry light. You have no honor? You attacked during a sacred ritual. You are not warriors, you are assassins. Jake's expression didn't change. We are soldiers. War Master. And soldiers do whatever it takes to protect their people. Your honor fleet was a threat to human colonies. Now it's space debris. The transmission ended, leaving Kethvareth staring at a blank screen. In 3,000 years of Zephyrian military history, nothing like this had ever happened. The humans had broken every rule of civilized warfare. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, the Vorthak Collective was experiencing its own shock. Commander Steve Garcia had led a human strike force deep into Vorthak space, but instead of attacking their military fleet, he had targeted something the hive mind never expected anyone to attack. The humans had destroyed 3 Vorthak supply stations in a single coordinated strike. The stations had been lightly defended because no one had ever attacked supply lines before. It was considered dishonorable to target logistics instead of military forces. The Vorthak Prime Node processed this information with growing confusion. The collective mind tried to calculate the human strategy, but their actions made no sense according to traditional military doctrine. In the collective consciousness, millions of Vorthak voices spoke as one. The humans have attacked our supply network. This is not a valid military target. Why would they attack facilities that support civilian populations? The answer came from the human fleet commander, Admiral Lisa Carter, in a broadcast that reached every Vorthak node simultaneously. To the Vorthak Collective, this is Admiral Carter. We have destroyed your supply stations because an army cannot fight without food, fuel, and ammunition. We don't care about your military honor. We care about winning, the collective mind reeled. The humans were not fighting according to any known tactical doctrine. They were attacking infrastructure using stealth and surprise, and showing no concern for the traditional rules of engagement. Dr. Rachel Kim, A human psychologist studying alien reactions to their tactics watched the intercepted Vortha communications. With interest, the hive mind was struggling to adapt to human unpredictability. The Vorthak had spent centuries perfecting their ability to think together, to anticipate enemy actions through collective intelligence, but humans didn't think like a collective. Every human commander made independent decisions. Every human soldier could change tactics on the fly. The Vorthak couldn't predict what humans would do next because humans themselves often didn't know what they would do next. Back with the Zephyrian fleet, War Master Kethvareth was trying to reorganize his forces for a counterattack. He had sent formal challenges to the human fleet, declaring his intentions to engage them in honorable combat. The humans' response was not what he expected. Captain Nick Thompson's squadron had been monitoring Zephyrian communications, waiting for their next move. When Kethvareth announced his battle plan and the location where he wanted to fight, the humans did something that horrified the Zephyrians even more than their surprise attack. They laughed. The laughter was broadcast on all frequencies, reaching every Zephyrian ship in the fleet. Human voices could be heard mocking the Zephyrian battle plans, calling them predictable and stupid. "Hey, Crystal Boy," came Captain Thompson's voice over the communications channel. "Thanks for telling us exactly where you're going to be and what you're going to do. That makes our job a lot easier." "You have no understanding of honor," Kethvareth replied, his voice shaking with rage. "You mock the sacred traditions of warfare." "We mock stupid traditions," Thompson shot back. "You've been fighting the same war for 300 years because you're too proud to fight smart. We're going to end this war in 3 months because we're not afraid to fight dirty." The psychological impact was devastating. The Zephyrians had built their entire culture around the idea that warfare was noble and honorable. The humans were treating it like a job, something to be completed as quickly and efficiently as possible. On the Vorthak side, the collective mind was experiencing something it had never felt before: individual doubt. Some nodes were beginning to disconnect from the hive mind, trying to think independently about how to fight these unpredictable humans. Commander Garcia's forces had launched another attack, this time targeting a Vortha communication hub. But instead of destroying it, they had hacked into it and began broadcasting false information throughout the collective network. Suddenly, Vorthak units were receiving contradictory orders. Some were told to attack human positions that didn't exist. Others were ordered to retreat from battles they were winning. The carefully coordinated hive mind began to break down as individual nodes couldn't tell which orders were real and which were human deceptions. "This is impossible," the Prime node transmitted to its subcollectives. "The humans are using our greatest strength against us. They are making our unity into a weakness." Dr. Kim watched the alien responses with growing fascination. Both species were experiencing something they had never encountered before: an enemy that refused to fight according to their expectations. The Zephyrians expected honor and found ruthlessness. The Vorthak expected predictability and found chaos. Both species were discovering that their centuries of experience meant nothing against an enemy that fought by completely different rules. As the first week of the war ended, the galaxy was beginning to understand that something had changed. The humans weren't just another species joining an old conflict. They were a force that threatened to change everything about how wars were fought on Earth. President Maria Lopez received the first battle reports with satisfaction. The human fleet had destroyed 2 alien fleets, crippled their supply lines, and shattered their communication networks. Most importantly, they had done it without. Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster stood on the bridge of the human assault ship Ranger, watching the blue-green planet of Zephyr Prime grow larger on the view screen. This was the most important Zephyrian fortress world, protected by massive defense shields and thousands of warrior temples. It had never been conquered in the entire history of the Zephyrian Empire. Amy was about to change that history. "Commander," called out Ensign Tom Rogers from his station, "we're receiving the standard challenge from the planet's defenders. They're asking us to declare our battle intentions and request formal combat." Amy smiled coldly. "Tell them we accept." Their challenge then launched the biological warfare pods. Tom's fingers hesitated over his controls. "Ma'am, are you sure? Using biological weapons against a civilian population is exactly what we need to do to end this war quickly," Amy finished. "These aren't deadly diseases, Ensign. They're designed to make people sick enough that they can't fight. Better than killing everyone on the planet." The pods launched silently, invisible to Zephyrian sensors. They were designed to release a harmless but debilitating virus into the planet's water supply. Within days, the entire population would be too sick to maintain their defenses on the planet's surface. War Commander Zixandra watched the human ships with confusion. The small human fleet had approached openly, accepting the challenge for honorable combat, but they weren't moving into proper battle formation. "Commander," reported her aide, "the humans have launched something toward our planet, but it's not weapons fire. Our sensors can't identify what they've sent." "Perhaps they're sending negotiators," Zixandra suggested. "Maybe they realize they cannot win against our defenses and wish to surrender with honor." 3 days later, Zixandra was too sick to stand. The mysterious illness had spread through the planet's water supply with terrifying speed. Zephyrian warriors who had trained their entire lives for combat were lying in bed, too weak to hold their weapons. Amy's voice came through the communication systems, reaching every corner of the planet. "War Commander Zixandra, this is Lieutenant Commander Foster. Your planet's defenses are now offline. Your warriors are unable to fight. You have 2 choices: surrender unconditionally, or we will land troops and take the planet by force." Zixandra tried to speak, but her throat was too raw from coughing. Around her, the greatest fortress world in Zephyrian space was falling without a single shot being fired. "You have no honor," she finally managed to whisper into her communicator. "You poison warriors instead of fighting them." "We have something better than honor," Amy replied. "We have victory, and our people are still alive." The surrender of Zephyr Prime sent shockwaves through the galaxy. For the first time in 3,000 years, a Zephyrian fortress world had fallen to an enemy. But more horrifying than the defeat was how it had happened. The humans had used biological warfare, something so dishonorable that no civilized species had ever considered it. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, Sergeant Dan Cooper was preparing for an even more shocking operation. His Special Forces team had been studying both alien factions for weeks, learning their communication systems and their tactical procedures. "Remember," Don told his team as they prepared their equipment, "we're not trying to hurt either side today. We're trying to make them hurt each other." The plan was brilliant in its simplicity. Using captured Zephyrian and Vorthic technology, Dan's team would send false messages to both alien fleets. The Zephyrians would receive communications that appeared to come from the Vorthek, claiming they were using human tactics. The Vorthek would receive similar messages claiming the Zephyrians had adopted human methods. The first false message went out to the Zephyrian fleet commander, General Korthvale. It appeared to be an intercepted Vorthek transmission discussing plans to use biological weapons against Zephyrian worlds. "The Vorthek are learning from the humans," the fake message said. "We will poison their water supplies as the humans did to Zephyr Prime. Honor means nothing against such effective tactics." General Korthvale read the message with growing horror. The idea that the Vorthik might abandon their own honor codes was terrifying enough. But the thought that they were learning these dishonorable tactics from humans was even worse at the same time. The Vorthik Collective received their own false message, apparently from Zephyrian Military Command. It discussed plans to attack Vorthak supply lines using stealth tactics. Learned from watching human operations. The collective mind processed this information with alarm. If the Zephyrians abandoned their predictable battle patterns and started fighting like humans, the Vorthik's strategic calculations would become useless within hours. Both alien factions were attacking each other with renewed fury, but now they were fighting with paranoia and fear instead of their usual disciplined patterns. Each side expected the other to use human tactics, making them suspicious of every move their ancient enemies made. The confusion reached its peak when a Zephyrian Fleet accidentally fired on a Vorthak medical transport, believing it might be carrying biological weapons. The Vorthak retaliated by destroying a Zephyrian supply convoy. Convinced it was a stealth attack, Dan watched the chaos from his command ship, monitoring alien communications as both sides descended into paranoid warfare. "It's working perfectly," he reported to Admiral Carter. "They're so afraid of each other using our tactics that they're fighting more viciously than they have in centuries. And they're ignoring us while they tear each other apart," Carter replied with satisfaction. "Good work, Sergeant." Back on the Zephyrian homeworld, War Master Kethvareth was facing the greatest crisis in his people's history. Not only had humans destroyed several of his fleets and conquered Zephyr Prime, but now they had somehow corrupted the Vorthak into fighting dishonorably. "This is a disaster beyond imagination," he told his council of generals. "The humans have not just beaten us. In battle, they have destroyed the very concept of honorable warfare." General Vextara nodded grimly. "War Master, our intelligence suggests the humans are also targeting our industrial centers and civilian populations. They're not trying to defeat our military. They're trying to destroy our entire civilization." This was partially true. Admiral Tony Rodriguez, commanding the human fleet's main battle group, had indeed begun attacking Zephyrian and Vorthak industrial facilities. But his strategy was more sophisticated than simple destruction. "We're not trying to kill everyone," Tony explained to his officers during a strategy meeting. "We're trying to make it impossible for them to continue fighting. Every factory we destroy is one less facility producing weapons. Every supply depot we capture is more resources they can't use against us." Commander Lisa Wells, his tactical officer, pointed to the holographic display showing their targets. "Admiral, intelligence reports that both alien factions are starting to have supply shortages. Their fleets are running low on fuel and ammunition." "Good," Tony replied. "The longer this war goes on, the weaker they become. Meanwhile, our industrial capacity is completely untouched. We can keep fighting for years if necessary." This was the most terrifying aspect of human warfare from the aliens' perspective. The Zephyrians and Vorthak had been fighting according to ancient traditions that kept the war far from their civilian populations. But humans brought the war directly to their enemies. Ability to wage war. Human fleets appeared wherever the aliens least expected them. Mining colonies, manufacturing centers, agricultural worlds all became legitimate targets in the human war effort. The aliens watched in horror as their entire civilizations were slowly dismantled. Piece by piece, the psychological impact was devastating. On Vorthak worlds, individual nodes began disconnecting from the collective consciousness, trying to hide from the shared terror that was spreading through the hive mind. On Zephyrian worlds, warriors abandoned their honor codes and began preparing for guerrilla warfare, something their culture had never imagined needing. Dr. Rachel Kim, studying the aliens' psychological responses, was amazed by what she observed. "Both species are experiencing cultural breakdown," she reported to Earth Command. "They're so traumatized by our tactics that they're abandoning their fundamental beliefs about warfare." "Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" asked President Maria Lopez during their video conference. "For ending the war quickly, it's very good," Dr. Kim replied. "But we're essentially destroying their entire way of life. They may never recover from the psychological damage we're causing." Maria was quiet for a moment. "Dr. Kim, these species have been killing each other for 300 years because they refused to fight effectively. If traumatizing them into stopping their stupid war is what it takes to save lives, then that's what we'll do." The conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from Admiral Carter. Both alien factions were requesting emergency meetings with human command. They weren't asking for formal battle challenges or honor duels. They were asking for negotiations. "They want to talk?" Maria asked. "More than that," Carter replied. "They want to discuss surrender terms, both of them, separately." Maria felt a moment of satisfaction. In less than 2 months, humanity had accomplished something that 3 centuries of alien warfare had failed to achieve. They had brought both sides to the negotiating table. Admiral Karen Hayes stood on the bridge of the massive human battleship Victory, watching as her fleet prepared for the most important mission in human history. Around her, 500 human warships moved through space toward the heart of both alien empires. This would be the final demonstration of human power. "Admiral," called out Captain Billy Clark from his communications station, "we're receiving desperate transmissions from both alien homeworlds. They're begging us to stop the advance." Karen looked at the tactical display. Her fleet was split into two groups, one heading for the Zephyrian homeworld and another for the Vortex Central System. Both alien civilizations knew what was coming, and they were terrified. "What are they offering?" she asked. "Complete surrender, Admiral. Both factions are willing to give up everything if we just stop the attack." Karen shook her head. "Not yet. They need to understand that threatening humanity was the biggest mistake they ever made. The plan was simple but devastating. The human fleets would not destroy the alien homeworlds. Instead, they would demonstrate that they could reach them anytime they wanted. The psychological impact would be complete and permanent on the Zephyrian homeworld." War Master Kethvareth stood in his crystal palace, watching the sky for signs of the approaching human fleet. His entire military had been destroyed or scattered. His fortress worlds had fallen one by one. Now the humans were coming for the heart of his empire. "War Master," said General Vextara, her voice shaking with fear, "perhaps we should evacuate the government. The humans have shown no respect for civilian populations." Kethvareth's crystalline body flickered with dim light. "Where would we go? The humans have ships everywhere. They appear wherever they want, whenever they want. There is nowhere to hide from them." The truth was crushing. The Zephyrian Empire, which had controlled hundreds of star systems for thousands of years, had been reduced to a few scattered worlds in just 2 months. The humans had dismantled their civilization piece by piece, using tactics so ruthless that Zephyrian warriors couldn't even comprehend them. "Sir," called out a communications officer, "the human fleet is approaching our outer defenses." "What defenses?" Vextara asked bitterly. "The humans destroyed our orbital platforms last week. They poisoned our garrison troops on the moon bases. We have nothing left to defend with." Through the palace windows, they could see the human ships appearing in the sky above their capital city. The vessels were smaller than Zephyrian warships, but they moved with deadly precision. Unlike alien fleets, which moved in beautiful formations, the human ships spread out like hunters surrounding their prey. Admiral Hayes' voice came through every communication system on the planet. "War Master Kethvareth, this is Admiral Hayes of the human fleet. As you can see, we are now in orbit above your homeworld. We could destroy your capital city, your government, and your entire population if we chose to." Kethvareth tried to respond with dignity, but his voice cracked with fear. "What do you want from us, Admiral?" "We want you to understand something very important," Hayes replied. "This war is over. You started it by threatening our people. We are ending it by demonstrating our power. From this day forward, any act of aggression against humanity or our allies will result in the complete destruction of your civilization. And if we surrender, then you will live. You will disarm your remaining military forces. You will pay compensation for the damage you caused to our colonies. And you will remember that we showed you mercy only because we chose to, not because you deserved it." The transmission ended, leaving Kethvareth staring at the human ships above his world. In his 3,000 years of life, he had never felt so helpless. The humans had not just defeated his military. They had proven that everything he believed about warfare was wrong. On the other side of the galaxy, the Vorthek Collective was experiencing its own moment of terror. The massive hive mind that connected trillions of individuals across hundreds of worlds was fracturing under the weight of absolute fear. Commander Tony Rodriguez led the human fleet approaching the Vorthek Central System. Unlike the Zephyrians, who fought as individuals, the Vorthek had always relied on their collective consciousness to coordinate their defense. But the humans had spent weeks disrupting their communications, filling their networks with false information, and forcing individual nodes to disconnect from the collective. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Sarah Murphy from her sensor station, "we're detecting massive system failures in the Vorthek collective network. Individual planets are going dark, cutting themselves off from the hive mind." Tony nodded with satisfaction. The collective mind was their greatest strength against traditional enemies. But it became their greatest weakness against us. They can't handle the chaos we bring to their perfect order. As the human fleet entered the Vorthek home system, they were met not by coordinated resistance, but by confused panic. Vorthek ships fled in random directions, their crews no longer able to communicate effectively with each other, the prime node. The central intelligence that had guided the Vorthek for millions of years sent a desperate transmission to the human fleet. "Please, we surrender. We offer complete capitulation. Do not destroy our unity." Tony's response was broadcast to every Vorthek node simultaneously. "Your unity was an illusion. You spent centuries fighting the same war because you could not adapt to change. We have shown you that flexibility is more powerful than perfection." "What are your terms?" the prime node asked. "The same terms we gave the Zephyrians. Complete disarmament, reparations, and the understanding that any future aggression will result in extinction." Back on Earth, President Maria Lopez stood before the combined assembly of the United Earth Government. The room was filled with representatives from every human colony, every military commander, and every civilian leader. "Ladies and gentlemen," Maria began, "I am pleased to announce that both the Zephyrian Empire and the Vorthek Collective have agreed to our surrender terms. The war is over." The room erupted in cheers, but Maria raised her hand for silence. "However, we must understand what we have accomplished here. We have not just won a war. We have changed the nature of warfare itself in this galaxy." Senator Paul Davis, who had opposed the war from the beginning, stood up. "Madame President, what kind of galaxy have we created? Every species in known space now fears humanity. They call us monsters." "And because they fear us," Maria replied, "they will think twice before starting wars. The Zephyrians and Vorthek fought for 300 years because they fought politely. They killed billions of their own people because they refused to fight effectively. We ended their war in 2 months because we fought to win." Dr. Alex Rodriguez, who had studied alien psychology throughout the conflict, addressed the assembly. "The other species in the galaxy are struggling to understand what happened. They've spent thousands of years believing that warfare should be honorable and civilized. We've shown them that sometimes the most merciful thing you can do is win, quickly and decisively." The formal surrender ceremonies took place on a neutral space station. War Master Keth Vareth and the Vorthek Prime Node signed documents that officially ended the longest war in galactic history. Neither alien leader could look directly at the human representatives. Admiral Carter, representing humanity at the ceremony, spoke to both defeated factions. "You called us monsters for fighting without honor, but honor is a luxury that costs lives. Your honorable war killed trillions of beings over 3 centuries. Our dishonorable war saved more lives than you destroyed." Keth Vareth's crystalline form flickered weakly. "What happens now? How do we live knowing that we are helpless against you?" "You live peacefully," Carter replied. "You rebuild your civilizations. You help other species resolve their conflicts before they become wars. And you remember that humanity is watching." The years that followed became known as the Great Peace. News of humanity's victory spread throughout the galaxy, reaching species that had never even heard of humans before. The message was clear: this young species fought differently than anyone else, and they were terrifyingly effective at it. Other alien conflicts began ending almost immediately. Species that had been fighting for decades suddenly found ways to negotiate, terrified that their wars might attract human attention. The galaxy had never been more peaceful. Captain Jake Morrison, now an old man, sat in his retirement home on Earth, reading reports from across human space. His granddaughter, Lucy, sat beside him reading about the war in her history books. "Grandpa," she asked, "do you think we did the right thing?" "The other aliens still call us the scary monsters of the galaxy." Jake smiled and looked out the window at the peaceful Earth sky. Lucy, before we entered that war, two alien empires had been killing each other for 300 years. Children were born, lived their entire lives, and died while that war continued. Now those same species are working together to build hospitals and schools, but they're afraid of us. Sometimes, Jake said gently, being feared by bullies is the price you pay for protecting the innocent. The galaxy learned that humans don't fight for sport or honor. We fight to make the fighting stop. Lucy thought about this for a moment. So we're the galaxy's scary big brother?